I'm Paula and I'm an addict.
Paula.
And I've been praying for divine intervention all morning. It's great to be here. Thank you for the committee for asking me to share. It's great to come here last night and hear two amazing opening shares that kind of filled me with hope and set the weekend. And I've been praying this morning to come out of self, because I've just had a whole week in self, in resentment, anger, bitterness. Didn't go to a meeting all week, which is really unlike me, to cover up what I've been feeling, and but at the same time praying for it to kind of come to the surface as well. So I got here today, and I've spent the morning in meetings crying, and all my friends have been crying as well. We've all just been crying. Which I guess is okay. I've got my water, my tissue. I've wrote some notes because I feel really nervous sat up here, and I tend to go off and waffle and get manic and then come back. So I kind of put some notes down to prompt myself. And so the masks have to go. I thought, wow, that's a cruel topic. Having to sit up here, vulnerable, exposed, and the masks have to go. It's like, step 5. The key to freedom, they say. And I guess I learnt my masks in my childhood. I had some really, really good teachers, mainly my mother. And I learnt them well, you know. I perfected them and became really good at them, and shut down at a very early age. Come from a background of drug addiction. Brought up in drug addiction, and kind of learnt to pretend it wasn't happening, which is something I can still do now. So for me, I started to use drugs around age 12, 13, and they were pharmaceuticals that were in the house. Strong prescription drugs those days, just knocked you out for days. And for me, that was a lifesaver. By that age, I couldn't cope with reality. I couldn't cope with life. I couldn't cope with my thinking, the way that I felt. So using drugs, I do believe, sitting here now, kind of saved my life to a point, because they sent me sleep for many years. And there was the beginning of. So from the age of, say, 12, 13 to 30 years of age, I used drugs day in, day out, relentlessly. And through that period of 19 years, I had 2 children, a few geographicals. You know, I went up this kind of drug ladder, cannabis, amphetamines, a few party drugs. It wasn't really, you know, my thing. I didn't like to be awake. So I kind of, you know, took drugs that sent me sleep for as long as possible. But had 2 children along the way, and kind of had some kind of life in amongst that, although it was extremely chaotic. Very addicted to chaos. Didn't feel kind of okay if I wasn't in some kind of chaotic madness when I was awake. So these 2 children kind of never changed anything, but the thoughts were that they might change, they might stop me from using, they might make life better, I might be able to kind of have this family and be normal and that type of stuff. Although, you know, saying that out loud, it kind of feels insane right now, but at the time it was that type of thinking. All through my using, I drank alcohol. So alcohol is a drug for me, and I'm really grateful that I have that. That I don't think, well, I know that I can't drink. I drank Tennant Super from the age of 13 to 30 daily. So I'm an alcoholic as well, thank God. I don't think, oh, I can just have one drink. I know that I can't. So through drug addiction, there was a lot of destruction. And I guess thinking about my masks, they were survival techniques, you know, that pretending I didn't care, you know, relationships breaking down. I'd just move on to new people. I'd move areas. I'd change friends. For me, you couldn't get anywhere near me on an emotional level in any way, shape or form. And when I came into recovery, that was still my truth and still can be today. You know, I was 12-stepped into the rooms in 93. I didn't get it then. Went into a treatment centre in 93. Was introduced to the fellowship and loved it. I loved the fellowship. You know, I loved the atmosphere. I liked the people in there, and I just took to it. But I didn't stop using. And then I did another treatment centre in 96, although I'd been in meetings prior for those 3 years, kind of listening, hearing what people were saying, listening to that hope, listening about the steps, sponsorship, service. So I kind of had some knowledge when I went into my last treatment centre. And I remember my point of surrender. I remember that when they say step one goes from the head to the heart, and I remember feeling that happen to me. I was in a room, I was 3 months clean, my mother was dying, I was medicating her with all my favourite drugs, and I just knew I was ready to go to any lengths, and I've not used since. So I celebrated 20 years in March the 16th. Thank you. And I have to say, when I think about that, how did I do that? And I guess I did it a day at a time. And when I think about my masks, I do those a day at a time. And I, you know, if I'm going to reveal myself, my masks are pride, control, and anger. And they are my 3 top masks that I use, and I'm very, very good at them. Yeah. And it's funny because I knew I was doing this share last year, and when they sent me the topic, because I got a bunch of questions as well, just to make sure that I was, you know, I guess yeah. It was like, well, I'm really good at, you know, breaking down my masks and being vulnerable and telling people who I am. And in the last kind of 4 months, I've really given that some thought, and actually, I'm not as good at it as I think I am. And so that's been good for me, because it's been a real eye-opener. So yeah, when I came in, I was angry, beyond belief. I mean, people think I'm angry now. I am so not, compared to what I was. I was bitter, I was angry, and I was twisted inside. And once I'd surrendered with step 1, and I'd kind of in step 2, I'd got some hope. In step 3, you know, I became willing to look at who I was. And step 4 and 5 were the turning point for me in my recovery. When I wrote down who I actually really was, because I was very much a victim of my past before I got to step 4. It was everybody else's fault. The damage that was caused, I'd come from extreme abuse and physical abuse. So it was everybody else's fault. They did it to me. And if you'd have had a life like I'd have had, you'd have used drugs too and caused all that destruction. So until I got to step 4, it didn't turn around for me. And step 4 turned that around for me, because what I saw was me instead of everybody else. That I'd spent a lot of years looking at, blaming for my using, blaming for my upbringing, all that kind of stuff. So I took a long, hard look at who I was. And I was a difficult child. I was a difficult teenager. You know, I was really off key. I was that one of those that would go that extra mile. I would just do anything and everything. And I had that label of she's mad, she is. I loved it. I loved that label. It really floated my boat. It was like, wow, that's me. You know, it kind of really fitted me and I really enjoyed it. So, you know, when I finally got clean and came into the rooms, you know, being that angry and that bitter and resentful was just so painful. So starting that step 4 work and looking at who I really was, kind of brought me, I guess like it says in our reading, it brought me from out the past and into the here and now and enabled me to take some responsibility in my recovery. Because it's you know, it's kind of my responsibility to kind of put my mess down and be honest. And I don't always find that easy. I still have a need to protect myself. Fortunately, I have a few people in my life where my sponsor, my sponsees, and some friends that I'm able to tell them how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and what's really going on for me. And if I didn't have that, I truly don't believe that I would be here. If I didn't have those friendships and that sponsorship, I wouldn't be here because I'm just not somebody that can hold on to that stuff and stay clean. I'm not, you know. I feel extremely grateful for that, actually. When I think about the love that I've received this morning, it's just like, I have to work at letting that in when I put down the masks. It's like, let that in. Just let that in. It just makes me want to cry. And, yeah, I'm a tough old bird, actually, when I think about it. I am. I really am. My masks stop me from receiving the love that I have in my life. I have so much love in my life, but my mask stops that from getting in. And I have 2 children. My oldest son is 8 years in June, in another fellowship, thank God. He's not in this one. Yeah, thank God he's in one. And my youngest son, who's 29, is smoking crack every day. And to watch your own child doing that is absolutely heartbreaking. Sometimes I can really see what it was like for my mother. But now I'm on the other side of the fence, I can really see. And I look at him with compassion because he's an addict and he's got this disease. And that's what this week's been about, having to shut down and really try and protect myself from that pain that I felt this week. Because I went to see him this week, and it doesn't look like the same man that I seen in January. He just doesn't. He's dying, and yeah, that is. How do I manage that? I cry. I tell people close to me how hard that is to deal with. And if you knew, don't worry, this is not catching. This is my story and it is how for me. And, you know, if you see somebody with a bit of time crying, it doesn't mean to say that you're going to be crying when you get there. So, you know, so it's like... But yeah, I've cried a lot in this fellowship. I have. I've cried a lot and I've shouted a lot. And, you know, I continue to do the work. I have to. You know, I found out more about my addiction in my clean time than I did in my using. When I got clean, I found out why I used and continue to find out why I need to work this program. Because if I'm not connected to a higher power, to myself and others, I don't have a chance. I really don't have a chance. It really doesn't work for me. If I don't do the things that I've done since I came in day one, it doesn't work for me. You know, I continue to work the program. I continue to get on my knees every morning. I have a good connection with a higher power. I choose to call it God. I'm okay with that. It's just a word. You know, I come from a religious Catholic upbringing, so I guess I'm a recovering Catholic. Anybody that's Catholic would understand that, because it's a really awful way to be brought up. So when I got here, I had a connection with a higher power. It just wasn't loving and caring. It was punishing and judgmental, and I had a black soul, and I had to confess every Saturday before I could eat the body of Christ, and that type of stuff. So for me, all I needed to do was turn that around, and I've done that. And I trust the process. I trust if I do the right thing, if I'm not okay, step 1, I pick the phone up. Step 2, I tell someone. And step 3, I become willing to do what's suggested to me. And it's that simple. Yeah. I'm losing my train of thought now. I continue to do service in the fellowship. Sponsorship is I guess, the heartbeat of this fellowship. It's my biggest love. It's where I'm able to let my mask down and connect. It works for me. I've always done service at group level because I think it's important to do that. I do a gratitude list every single night, and no matter how I'm feeling, what's going on for me, I am able to find a list as long as my arm of the things that I'm grateful for. Always, no matter what, I always have gratitude in my life, always. I do an inventory every night in an inventory group. I do 2 questions out of the step 10. And I'm not saying this to say, that not at all. I do it because I feel like I have to. I do it because I need to stay connected. I do it because I need to stay in touch with myself, because I go off key really quickly. And I become manic really quickly. So I do an inventory, we do 2 questions, and it's fantastic because it's kind of a forum to say, yeah, I've acted out today, yeah, I've been a bit of a bitch today, I've shouted my mouth off at work. I have a really bad habit of shouting my mouth off at work because I know that I'll get away with it, but then I feel guilty afterwards. Yeah, so I do those things because my masks are in place for me to cover. I guess the main thing, if I'm honest, they're covering up shame. That is my biggest thing that they're covering up. They're covering up the shame of the upbringing, the damage that was done, and then later on in my using, the damage that was caused. However, I don't carry that on a daily basis like I used to. I don't lock myself away. I don't not answer the phone. I don't not go to meetings, although I have spent 5 days this week not going when I needed to go. And it's that. Yeah, it's just kind of. I've done an awful lot in my recovery. You know, I've kind of built up some amazing friendships. I have an amazing sponsor that's just... my sponsorship has been, for me, my sponsors have given me the most important gift in my recovery, and that's been acceptance. Because when I got here, I was not able to do that for myself. And my first sponsor, she moved away after about 14 years. She was this lady that just accepted me no matter what. I'd go up her house and come out with some off-key behaviours that I'd done in recovery that I'd feel really ashamed of, and she'd say, "It's okay." And I'd be like, "Really? It's okay." And I'd never had that in my life. I didn't get it from my primary caregivers. I didn't get it from the people that I knocked about with, because they all used too. You know, and this lady, for the first time in my life, was giving me acceptance that just, for me, it's been kind of been the heartbeat of my sponsorship too. That I love my sponsees no matter what they do, because I was loved no matter what I did. Very gentle it was. It was very gentle sponsorship, and it worked for me. However, she'd tell me, you're doing this and you're doing that and that defect's going on and those types of things. She would kind of pull me up. But at the same time, she just loved and accepted me. And I couldn't do that for myself. So to get that from somebody else was a real gift in my recovery. And being able to pass that on has been a real gift in my recovery. And I've travelled, I've been to lots of different places, and I continue to search for that spiritual connection. I continue to do that through. I've done kind of all sorts, I've done kind of yoga on the rooftops in India, and been to spiritual retreats, and done different types of programs, and been in and out of different types of therapy and all that type of stuff. And each little bit of it has made a difference, has made some kind of change in my life. And I guess being asked to do this share is like, if it's done anything for me, it's kind of helped me think, actually, I need to let my mask down more. Because I really didn't realise until I was asked to do this share how much I still carry that and cover myself up. And people that don't know me, I know that they kind of would not believe that about me. It's kind of like, I guess because I carry myself quite well. I do what I say I'm going to do. I don't sit in meetings saying one thing and do another. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I guess I'm a good recovering addict. Wow. Yeah. And one of the biggest gifts in my recovery, along with my friendships and sponsorships, has been that being a grandma, and I thought that I would not be able to do that. I didn't particularly like my children. I didn't bond with them. They was in the way of my using. When I got clean, they started using, so we wasn't really connected. And then when they started to have children, it's absolutely blown me away. I guess if I'm connected to anyone more in my life other than my higher power, it's my grandchildren. I have this connection with my grandchildren that I have never experienced in my life. I guess they get over the wall. They get over the wall, and I experience a God-given love that just fills me with just joy. And I'm so grateful that I'm here and I'm able to do that, because for me that feels like I've been given a second chance, that I can take care of my son's children. That's kind of one of my biggest gifts in recovery. I've got 5 minutes. Right, okay, let me just have a look at my notes and see if I've not shared anything that I haven't put down. Oh, yeah. I've wrote here, because I've had 4 months to do this. I've done some amazing shares in my car. I was like, oh, I wish I'd have recorded that one. Oh, my God, have I? When you've got no fear and nobody's around and you just kind of, and there's this and there's that. Very opinionated mind. Yes, and I think this, and we shouldn't do that, and that's not right, and all that kind of stuff. It's been it's just been in my head, and I have to say, and I hate to say it, and I'm not saying this is going to be like it for anybody else, but for me, sharing, I've done lots of convention shares. They get harder for me, and I guess that's about expectation. I have really high expectations when I come to a convention and I sit over there. I want to hear some really good shares on the main stage. And that's my expectation. And it's like, hello, so it's kind of like, oh dear. So I guess, what I'm going to end on is, for me, I tried to be here without working this programme for about just over 2 years, and I kept relapsing. It didn't work for me, So if it's not working for you, the possibility is you're not working the programme, because it doesn't work unless you do the step work. You can go to meetings, have a sponsor, do service, but if you don't do the step work, it doesn't work. For me, it didn't work. The healing for me and the change for me is in the steps. And continuing to do the stuff that I need to do. And also, I think one thing for me, some of my recovery was about just hanging on in there, just not using that day, and accepting that I don't feel great, that I've just not got all that I want right now, and that it's the journey that's important and not the destination, because I wanted everything really quickly, and a lot of it didn't happen. A lot of it. Don't get me wrong, I have this life that they tell us about beyond our wildest dream. I have everything that I wanted when I got here. I have contentment, peace of mind, I have a home, I have a job, I have families, I'm responsible. I have all those things. But some days I don't want it. I don't want it, and I guess that's part of being an addict. One day I like it, next day I don't. And that's why I'm really careful about my opinions, because they change every day. So I might give you an opinion today, but tomorrow it might be, don't feel like that today, So I guess it's about doing it no matter what. Going to a meeting no matter what. Doing your step work no matter what. Phoning your sponsor no matter what. And things work out. So yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the weekend and listening to some shares and just being in London in the convention around other addicts. I just find it a real spiritual experience for me. I have tears, I have that hair stand up on my neck when I hear things. And, I was in a meeting before I came to the convention and I heard this lady, she just shared and she went, "It's over." And it was like, wow, it's over. And it just went right in there. And that, those little gems that we're given along the way, those times when the penny drops. So yeah, I guess, if you didn't get anything from here, Trevor's next.
Oh, don't do that.
And lots of other shares going on. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula.